All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And a show we shall have. It is so great to have you here. We've got the crew. Kim just wrapping up her first part of her day, which includes
Kim, how are you?
Nikki Maduro show. So it's great to have Kim in the mix. And, of course, Albert has let the dust settle from his birthday, and he joins us.
Albert, thank you.
Thank you very much, Albert, for being here.
Good
Albert,
morning,
you
Mike.
have tweeted that the show is on the air?
I have, yes.
Yeah. The live show is just a small part of what the show does, but we do love having live viewers and listeners. In fact, there is a special announcement we have today for something new that we're going to do on the show, and I think you're really going to like it. It does involve you, the listener and viewer. So, I don't see... Oh, you didn't tag me in your post, Albert. Is that a problem?
Oh, wait, let me... I usually do, but let me double check.
Yeah, maybe you want to double check that. All right. I'm getting that same mediocre quality of work from my colleagues that I come to count on. You know, when it's everybody's side hustle, it's a side hustle. Come on, Albert, get it together. All right. Yeah, it's great to have everybody here. I do have a lot of show today. John Rothman stops through. He of the great podcast that apparently is insanely hot. It is the Around the Political World with John Rothman. And he'll be here just bottom of this first hour. And we have Kate Flannery joining us in the second hour. Kate wrote a book that you must hear about. It's all about the world of American Apparel. Remember the brand American Apparel was embroiled in a lot of controversy once. It was very popular, okay? American Apparel was doing really well. But once the curtain was pulled back on what was going on at American Apparel with harassment of all sorts, it was revealed to be a super toxic environment, and the guy who ran American Apparel, a super toxic dude. So Kate Flannery, she worked at American Apparel, and her journey through American Apparel, how she ended up there. I mean, I believe she graduated Bryn Mawr, and she's like, you know, a very smart, together person. And she talks about how she landed at American Apparel, and then what happened once she got into this environment. She rose to the organization, and she looked around and was like, this is just crazy what's going on here. So it's called Strip Tease, the book, Tees, okay, because the American Apparel T-shirts are so popular, I guess. Strip Tease, a memoir of Millennial Los Angeles. So we'll talk to Kate. That will be in the second hour, an insider account of American Apparel's toxic culture.
Yeah, those T-shirts, and it was like the black hoodie with the white lace that was like all over the place, I feel like, and those were the American Apparel sweaters. And I did tag you, Mark, by the way.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank
check
you.
on that tweet.
Check out. Let me check out. I'll make sure. Apparently, I've been tagged, and I'd like to. Let me just check out it.
In the Mark Thompson newsroom, I almost said the station. In the Mark Thompson newsroom, we are following what's happening in Maui today. So,
that is our lead. This is very tough. You know, I change our lead that, you know, what the headline is going to be. I change it over and over and over again. Changed like 3 times this morning. But I think it is true that what's happening in Lahaina now, these are wind-whipped wildfires in Lahaina that have engulfed. Yeah,
Hurricane Dora, hurricane force winds. This is what's happening on Maui, on the Big Island. Unprecedented wildfires there. We see that here in California. They haven't seen wildfires like that on the Hawaiian Islands, and so this is something that they were likely very unprepared for.
They do have the fire season in Hawaii. They do have wildfires there. But Kim is right that to have the wildfires that they are used to beating back coincide with this hurricane which is creating conditions that make it impossible to fight the fires. That they haven't seen. And you want to fight these fires with airborne firefighters, can't do it. The winds are just too high. Do you have the video, Albert, that I sent you of what's going on in Lahaina? Lahaina's on the west side of Maui, the island of Maui.
Yeah, people are
And
leaping
this is
into
the
the
business
sea.
district.
Oh,
This is the
that's Front Street in Lahaina town.
it's a eerie, bizarre sight because we're used to seeing, tourists enjoying themselves, and
It's an old historic whaling village that was turned into kind of a tourist town. There's a lot of historic plantation homes in this area. There's a lot of condos along Front Street as well. But the majority of Front Street that you see burning there is the shopping district, the restaurants. It's the touristy area where people go. Um, it's we were talking earlier about the historic banyan tree in Lahaina town that has been there since the 1800s, and it's historic. It almost takes up a full city block, and that it may be gone too. That the whole place is just done. Yeah, I'm personally devastated, and following the story, it's horrible. People jumping into the ocean to escape danger. The Hawaii National Guard activated to help support first responders. We don't know of any deaths. We know that one firefighter was overcome by the heat and had to be treated. So far, that's all we know as far as any injuries, but a lot of people have lost their homes and their businesses and their livelihoods. And right now at Kahului Airport in Maui, more than 1,800 people are seeking shelter there. As flights arrive, you can't go into Maui now, so you have to stay at the airport until they can find you a flight to get you out. And so there's help to try to get people booked on these flights out if the planes can fly in these winds. And so the airport is being used now as a massive shelter.
Wow, that's a pretty grim summary of what's going on down there. And then, as you mentioned, the fire drove people into the sea, to escape the flames. It's really, literally out of control. Thank you, Albert, for that. That's Maui, and Lahaina's on the west side. You can see it, and if you can blow it
Far
up.
left.
Far
Yeah.
left, yeah, exactly, like left corner.
The other fires are burning in, I believe, upcountry Maui and possibly Makawao in that area.
You
But
know
Lahaina,
Hawaii pretty well, Kim?
I would say yes. Yes.
Yeah. And how do you know Hawaii so well?
Well, other than the Mark Thompson show, every important thing that has happened to me has happened there.
Huh?
So I was born in Hawaii,
Ah,
got married in Hawaii.
wow.
My kids took their first steps in Hawaii.
What?
First time they ever went into the ocean was in Hawaii.
Oh
So,
my gosh, I didn't know that. Now,
yeah.
why was your life and why was the kids' life so Hawaii-centric? What's the reason for that?
Oh,
Were you living there?
my dad was stationed on Oahu actually when I was born, and so I was born in Hawaii. My parents
Wow.
lived there for a time, and I'm Californian. I mean, I grew up here. My parents moved back after my dad left the Navy, and
Mhm.
so but we still have connections there. We still have, it's kind of one of those places where when you have a connection, it just embeds itself in your heart. And so for that reason, I think we keep going back. We appreciate the people and the culture and the place. And yeah, so I'm pretty devastated by what's happening there today.
Wow. Well, you put a face on it. That's
I try not to cry, but yeah, it's pretty horrible.
I'm so sorry. Gosh, my God. Yeah, it's really it's emotional. Look, we have faced much the same stuff in California, as you say, and
Yeah.
they will and do rebuild. So that is a fact. But obviously, this is the thick of the problem right now. So, Well, thanks for being here, everyone. And we've got a lot to get to, so we'll try to get to some other stories as well as we watch that emerging story in Hawaii.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to mention the other breaking news, and I'll talk to Rothman because we tend to end up with a Trump-centric conversation sometimes. The breaking news this morning was this secret search warrant for Trump's Twitter account. It was a special counsel investigation into and this is all coming out in this unsealed court filing, into Donald Trump's Twitter. Apparently, they felt that there might be information in that account, either through direct messaging or other communications that might be revealing. Twitter was fined $350,000 because it delayed producing the records sought under the search warrant. And ultimately, they did produce them, but the delay cost them that fine. That's the Trump news. And as I say, there's, I think, more in the way of Trump news, but I'll put it to the side until Rothman gets here. I thought the other thing that was noteworthy, you might understate it, I mean, it's pretty huge, is what happened in Ohio, with Ohio voters saying no to this ballot measure that essentially, this is how it goes down. This ballot measure was going to come up in the fall that would have made women's reproductive rights essentially a thing of the past in Ohio, okay? And seeing that, there was an effort to put something on the ballot. Excuse me. You know, in the fall, they were going to put something on the ballot that would have enshrined women's reproductive rights. The GOP movement in Ohio wanted to take away women's reproductive rights and make them a thing of the past. So they launched this ballot initiative in a special election. In August, you, of course, have very low voter turnout. So it was really a scheme on the part of GOP leadership in Ohio to prevent this enshrinement of women's reproductive rights, the protection of women's reproductive rights in Ohio that was coming for the fall. That's pretty much all you need to know. So the polls, people showed up en masse, and they beat back that GOP effort. And ultimately, I mean, it wasn't even close. They showed up in such big numbers that Ohio voters said no.
It's really encouraging, but you wonder if the people behind the measure who want to do away with reproductive rights there, are they listening? Or are they just going to keep trying to cram this down women's throats, you know, even though it's very obvious that the people don't want it?
Well, they're jihadists, so they won't let go of it. You know, they're not going to go, oh boy, women don't want that. They feel driven by a much greater directive, and they will stop at nothing. Look, to stack the courts, to do whatever they can. They did successfully stack the Supreme Court, and they've rolled back women's reproductive rights at the federal level. And so now they're going state by state. So I don't think they're going to be cowed in the least by this. But the good news for those who want women to have all the reproductive freedoms that they should have, the good news is that it would appear that all the polling that's related to this issue is accurate. That this nation has evolved to this place where we feel women should be guaranteed these reproductive freedoms. And you see it in the state of Ohio, and I suspect you're going to see it beyond. You saw it in the midterm elections. I mean, it became an issue in the midterms, and it will, for once, my home state of Ohio, making me proud today, says Elise. Yeah, it will become a relevant issue in the next election. And I'm sure that's what John Rothman's going to say, but we can ask him. This was a big move, and it was an underhanded move, because reproductive rights weren't on the ballot, okay? The majority of Americans want abortion rights. That's right. These politicians are going against what the majority of people want, and that isn't right. Of course, that's indeed correct, Sandy, and that's what I'm saying, that this was played out. The underhanded part was that it wasn't on the ballot. I mean, that this was such a cleverly worded and oddly pursued campaign that it was a bit confusing. But in the end, women showed up en masse, and those who supported women's freedoms showed up en masse. So that's what happened in Ohio, and so that's the latest there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The early voting methods for 2020 that were, decried as awful by Donald Trump. How can you have early voting? You should have voting on the same day. That's the way this country was founded, blah, blah, blah. Well, now Trump allies are embracing early voting,
Wait, what?
That's right.
What do you mean? I thought that was like the devil, no?
Donald Trump has long railed falsely, excuse me, that this is the smallest font ever. I mean, I'm like microfiche small. Donald Trump has long railed falsely that mail-in voting, ballot drop boxes, and other voter conveniences were used to rig the 2020 election. Now his allies are embracing those very same tactics to boost the 2024 run. The effort, led by former Trump acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, aims to encourage conservatives to cast ballots by any legal means.
I don't understand how it can be bad, but now it can be good. Like, what are you saying? It's, so it's good when it works for you, but it's bad when it doesn't? Oh.
Yes, that's exactly what they're saying, actually.
Oh, I understand now. Okay.
There's never been anything like this.
The project is in its early stages, but they're trying to create a digital list of Republican voters and how they cast their ballots, and that'll help campaigns better mobilize them. They're trying to do this, mobilization. They definitely have an energized base. They're trying to expand that and looking to place drop boxes across the U.S. in places that can be easily reached by conservatives. So what's happening is this is a big effort. I mean, it's going on across the country. And essentially, if you look at history, voters who back Democrats were more likely to use mail-in and absentee ballots in the midterms, for example, in the most recent midterms. And, for that reason, Trump was decrying those. And so we're, the mail-in, I don't approve of it. It can be rigged. 60% of those who voted by mail or absentee ballots backed a Democratic candidate, compared to only 38% who backed a Republican. Republicans won more votes among those who waited until Election Day, with 60% of them backing a GOP candidate. So in private conversations, Trump has acknowledged the need to use the same strategies Democrats have employed to boost participation in recent elections. So they're saying, hey, maybe the Democrats have, the right idea. Vote early and, vote by mail if you can. So that's the latest on that. The last month there were
hypocrites. It's the parade of hypocrites.
The hypocrisy.
Wild idea that just might work.
The hypocrisy is commonplace in the GOP party. Sorry if they're GOP listeners and viewers. I have I welcome conversations and debates around policy, around philosophy, but this party has become, I would suggest, perverted by, the means justify the ends, and they're doing everything they can. I mean, look, it's shameful, really, the part. I think you should form a third party, the people, the true conservative party. Call it the true conservative party if you want. But anyway, look for more early voting, and Republican strategists now looking at areas where they can get out early vote and placement of ballot boxes in places that will favor them, the conservative voters. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
I love a cannabis story, and this is a big one. Yeah. You know it.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is the big business news. A cannabis company is going to be buying from Anheuser-Busch a bunch of craft beer brands. This is a sign of major changes in the cannabis industry and maybe in the beer industry as well. Tilray brands, I should say, already the 9th largest craft brewer in the United States. They are buying up a bunch of these craft. Do you feel like me? It feels to me like you'd be a craft brew guy. Am I right about that, Albert?
Time to time, not too often. I tend to lean to the heavier liquors, so save some.
Oh, is that right? You're more of a spirits guy?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Randy says they're going to name it Bud Light. Well done, Randy. Well done.
Yeah. I love it. Bud Light, L-I-G-H-T. Right on, brother. Right on.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest craft beer sellers in the U.S., and I guess this cannabis company is going to buy them up, this Tilray. Anheuser-Busch saying it's selling 8 craft beer brands to Tilray. So Tilray is the cannabis company, or Tilray is the... Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Cannabis is sold by Tilray. Who can keep track of the cannabis companies? The deal comes because of, they say, a buying opportunity slowing craft beer sales. People like Albert going for the spirits maybe, and as a result, this
I've been
Canadian
leaning the seltzers too, the Trulies, the High Noons, the White Claws. Yeah.
Very well. There it is. 8 craft beer brands go to this cannabis company.
Wow.
And Anheuser-Busch looking to restructure their business because of struggling stock prices, declining sales on beer. Over the last decade, Anheuser-Busch became a craft beer industry player because of successful in-house brands like Shock Top and acquisitions of other popular labels like Blue Point and Goose Island. But now they're saying they're cutting 8 craft beer brands from their portfolio and selling them off to this Canadian cannabis company, Tilray. Tilray expands its growing craft holdings. They include Sweetwater Brewing and Montauk Brewing and Green Flash, etc.
Green Flash.
Yeah. It's I believe it's a deal valued at, I don't see a final number on it. I saw $85 million in cash.
Wow.
But I don't know what else is going on with the actual deal. Maybe you can find out, Albert. I'm just curious.
Let me tell you this story. Let me bring you down, weed smokers.
Please. Yeah.
There's a study that came out Sunday that says using marijuana may affect your ability to think and plan.
Wait a minute.
What?
Uh-oh. Yeah. So I guess that this study looked at several areas of cognition impaired by cannabis use, including problems concentrating, difficulties remembering and learning, which may have a considerable impact on people's lives. This is the professor of clinical psychiatry at the University of Montreal. They say
Yeah.
cannabis in youth may consequently lead to reduced educational attainment in adults, to poor work performance, dangerous driving. These consequences may be worse in regular and heavy users because weed's impact on the brain can be detrimental to cognitive functions. That's what they're saying.
Stay at home and get baked.
I tell you something.
So, yeah.
Sadly, I can speak to that firsthand.
So if you have trouble, problem solving and
can't
maybe
remember.
putting the plans together. Yeah.
Can't remember what the major announcement was.
What?
I don't know. I will tell you, the edibles, I still feel as though, well, however you're getting it, I do edibles because I can't smoke because it hits my throat pretty hard. But the edibles, I still think they make you feel good.
They make you feel good and they help you sleep too, Mark. It's,
Do they ever,
you know,
brother?
sometimes
Do they ever?
you're looking for the price tag for the purchase, right? From Tilray. It was 85
Yes.
million.
Oh, it was 85 million. Okay.
Yeah.
Trouble
Thank you very
planning
much.
or no pain. I don't know. I'll go with the no pain.
Yeah, yeah.
The study looked at 43,000 people and in 2022, and they found a negative impact of THC. So it's the THC, not the CBD, that I guess affects your higher levels of thinking.
Yeah, the THC, the CBD helps you with a lot of stuff with joint pain and all the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially, it doesn't work for everybody the same way.
Right.
And the THC helps you feel good, baby. Yeah. You know
So,
what I'm saying.
THC affects your level of thinking. A
Yeah.
couple of days ago, you reported that apparently even one drink is going to give us a heart attack and we're all going to croak. So I don't know what's left. Can we enjoy anything? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. Look, these things are not good for you, you know. They're
Yeah.
good for your state of mind at the time, you know.
Maui's
But-
burning.
yeah.
I can't have anything. Okay.
No, it's true. No, I mean, and you in a way you do pick your poison, or you pick neither poison when you
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Alcohol is not the solution. Ricky Ober, yeah. Edibles are my favorite. Said who said edibles are my favorite? Oh, there's Spencer. I don't know why I can't bring this up. Edibles are my favorite. I buy these edibles with melatonin. 15 minutes and I'm out. A lot of people do use them for sleep. But as it turns out, you won't be able to focus, remember anything, and ultimately, maybe it's bad. So, I don't know. It's but if you don't sleep, they tell you that that's bad for you cognitively. So, you know, one way or the other. Albert, I have a producer question.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's not about Rothman. He's going to sit in the green room for a few more minutes while Kim's news goes down. Then we're going to have a big segment with Rothman. Don't worry, you're going to get a huge Rothman fix. But I want to ask you if I should do the brand new segment that we're going to do. It's an announcement. It's a major announcement for a new segment. Should I do it now is my question.
Yeah, let's quickly do it here. So we
All
have
right,
the
so
rest
this
of
is
the
a
show to talk
major
about it.
this is a major announcement on the Mark Thompson
On the
Show.
Mark Thompson Show.
Mhm.
A major announcement.
The major announcement is for a new segment. The new segment is called Talk to a Rando, and you're going to love it.
The Mark Thompson Show presents Talk to a Rando,
You talking to me?
where you, a random listener or viewer, joins the show.
Who are these people?
Let's find out with your host, Mark Thompson.
We are excited to welcome you to the show, but here's how it works. You will send us an email saying, I want to be the rando who you have on. And we will look at the email and we'll say, oh, let's do it. And then we'll send you a link and you will join us on the show. The email, you know, but I'll just reiterate for those who might not. Certainly there'd be no reason for you to remember it particularly, but it's easy to remember. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. You've got to put the in there. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. Tell us what you want to talk about. And if you're available during the regular hours of the show, and you will join us, you can be our rando. We're excited. Wear it proudly. Join us. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be related to Trump. It doesn't have to be related to cannabis. Whatever you feel you may want to talk about. It may be something in your life that you feel everyone could benefit from hearing. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. And we'll see you on Talk to a Rando soon. Maybe as soon as tomorrow.
Join us next time when maybe you can say,
I've been touched by greatness.
on Talk to a Rando, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
We'll have the actual rando on soon. So I hope it's you. We have a great audience, so I actually look forward to this with, yeah, we do. I'm really looking forward to it. So smash the like button. I haven't asked you to do it at all.
With your iron
I haven't
rod.
asked you to smash the like button. I haven't asked you for money. I haven't asked you to do anything the first half hour. We've been dealing with the Maui and the Ohio elections and all the rest, so we'll put that off to the side for now. Rothman joins us next. I'm really looking forward to talking to John. It's been an eventful week. Kim's News, and then the great John Rothman. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and let's start with what is happening in Maui. And the officials now in Maui say they do expect some type of loss of life. That as of yet, they do not have any confirmation on that, but we do know that there are burn centers, hospitals in Maui with burn patients now that are filling up. If we can, let's say, take that picture down, because I have some video that I did want to show you, and my screen is locking up and freezing.
Albert,
here.
you gotta. Oh, is it? That's true.
But I did want to show you that you can see in this video. Hopefully, take it away. Uh-oh. Well, maybe
I can
it's
pull
not
up the
gonna work.
video. Don't worry about it. I'll
Yeah,
pull it.
okay,
pull it
thank
up,
you.
yeah.
So there are evacuation and rescue efforts still underway in response to just devastating wildfires. President Biden and the White House have been in contact with local and state officials. The Big Island and Maui affected the most, mostly Maui. So at least 3 major fires burning on the island of Maui. Again, hospitals overwhelmed with some burn patients now on Maui. And Hawaii Governor Josh Green is saying that we have suffered a terrible disaster. This wildfire spreading wildly as a result of hurricane force winds in the region, underlying drought conditions as well. Maui and the Big Island both experienced significant fires. Much of Lahaina on Maui has been destroyed, hundreds of local families displaced. Green was on vacation, is cutting that short, returning back to the Hawaiian Islands later tonight. He is going to submit a disaster request to President Biden, who is also monitoring the situation in Hawaii. And Governor Green says, our state appreciates the incredible outpouring of concern and prayers from the mainland. We won't forget the aloha that you've already begun to share with us. So
That's powerful. Those images shot overnight from Maui.
I will say that we have listeners. We have listeners in the chat right now that live in between these 2 wildfires. And my thoughts are with you, and I hope that you and your family remain safe. But Walter, our listener, viewer, is also in Hawaii. We haven't heard from him yet this morning. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on you guys as well to make sure you're all safe. And if you have any information in the chat that you want to share with us, just know that, that we're with you. It's hard. The roads are very, very limited there, and it is hard to get out. And we saw pictures this morning of very similar to the situation in Paradise, California, where, it's 1 lane in, 1 lane out, and the traffic clogged and the flames burning on both sides of the road. And it's a nightmare, and it's terrifying for people. So it just, as they expect loss of life, I hope they're wrong. But my thoughts and aloha go to the people of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Twitter records are being used as evidence in the Justice Department's case against former President Trump. Special counsel Jack Smith got a search warrant for these Twitter records, according to unsealed documents. Twitter, which was fined $350,000 for its delay in handing over the records, was also prohibited from telling former President Trump about that warrant. Chief Justice John Roberts is seen slightly more favorably than former President Trump and President Biden. There's a new Gallup poll that asked respondents to rate a handful of public figures. 43% said they view Chief Justice Roberts positively, compared to 41% saying the same of Trump and Biden. Trump's unfavorable rate still sits at 55%, Biden at 57%. Meanwhile, Roberts' name is much less known, with 27% of respondents saying they've never heard of him and they have no opinion. What?
Yeah, that's a meaningless poll, frankly, but it's interesting. But I don't know
Yeah.
that really. Yeah.
Never heard of him. And as Mark had already mentioned this morning, this special election in Ohio is being considered a clear victory for abortion rights advocates. The Republican-controlled state legislature was pushing for an amendment to make it harder to change the state's constitution. Republican Ohio lawmakers had been fearing that pro-abortion advocates or pro-choice advocates would add abortion rights into the document. The Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office is looking for help locating a teenager that's been missing for more than a month. Monday, authorities found 17-year-old Catherine Schneider's car parked on Skyline Boulevard near Castle Rock State Park. Now, she was last seen leaving her home July 5th. Her family says she didn't have a phone or any electronics with her. They're still looking for her. In New York, a woman is in stable condition after being bitten by a shark. A New York City beach has been closed since the attack, and drones are now being used to detect more sharks in that area. Most Americans say they are concerned about rapidly developing artificial intelligence. There's a new poll from YouGov shows 62% of registered voters are mostly or somewhat concerned about AI growth. About 1 in 5 say they're excited about it, and 16% neutral. I don't know if I'm saying the brand name right, but dozens of thieves swarmed in Yves Saint Laurent. I think you're supposed to say Yves Saint Laurent in
Yeah.
Glendale. They made off with $300,000 worth of merchandise.
I think they just call it YSL.
YSL,
Yeah, the people are.
Them of the $3,000, $5,000 purses, right? Security
Right.
personnel at the Americana Mall in Glendale say the hooded masked mob rushed in, filled their bags with YSL bags, and got away before police could respond. The latest in a series of organized thefts at upscale Los Angeles area retail stores. And this is good news for me because I'm now a Target drive up, they deliver it to your car shopper. Target customers will soon be able to add Starbucks to their drive-up orders. The retailer announced it is beginning a nationwide rollout for the lazy folks who don't want to get out of the car. No, it's awful.
There's never been anything like this.
Mobility challenged, people in a hurry.
In a hurry.
Yeah. But they are going to roll out this nationwide option for shoppers to add Starbucks, food, and drinks to be delivered straight to the car. It's like a car hop service at Target. The service is now available at select stores in 24 states and will be available at more than 1,700 stores by early October. So have your coffee, have your groceries delivered, all while you sit in parking spot number 1. A Navy sailor based out of San Diego will remain in custody on charges of giving sensitive military information to China. Patrick Wei, W-E-I, Wei, was ordered detained last week, and a judge Tuesday confirmed he'll remain behind bars for the time being. A grand jury indicted Wei on charges that he accepted thousands of dollars from Chinese intelligence officers in exchange for information about the defense and weapons capabilities of U.S. Navy ships. Wei was arrested at Naval Base San Diego last week. If those allegations are true, Vallejo police could soon stop responding to home and business alarms in the city. Police were holding a public meeting yesterday discussing this proposal that would end police response to most alarms. Officials say 98% of the calls of home and business alarms going off end up being false alarms and waste time for police. Under the new proposal, officers would only be sent to deal with verified alarms, meaning it's been determined a crime is indeed in progress. Police officials say the department is understaffed as is, with less than 36 officers covering the entire city of Vallejo. They have declared a state of emergency because of it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So if your alarm goes off, good luck. You're on your own.
Wow. State of emergency declared. They're that understaffed.
They're that understaffed. It's a big, big problem in Vallejo. So now they're looking for ways to stretch out the officers that they do have, and responding to false alarms is just not conducive to when you have this few officers for this city. Yeah.
For those who don't know, Vallejo is sort of in the San Francisco Bay Area. Yeah. I mean, that might be the...
Google it.
Yeah.
Google it.
All right.
Yellow jackets causing quite the buzz in the North Bay these days. Vector officials say the aggressive wasp-like insects are out in full force, having seen their numbers skyrocket in the area this summer. Underground nesting yellow jackets are particularly aggressive. Officials say people need to be careful around these insects because their venom can be problematic for many. Vector officials saying they've received more than 1,200 calls this year to deal with yellow jackets and their nests, and that's more than double last year.
Did you say that yellow jackets are causing quite a buzz in the North Bay? Did you really say that?
I did it. I said that. I did it. Yeah.
Would you like to?
My bad. My bad.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
Would you like to? My bad. You're going right to my bad.
I'm indeed sorry.
All right.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
My words upset so
Well,
many
not
people.
so many people, but me.
I mean, I could have made the buzzing sound. That would have been worse, right?
That would have been worse. Yes, you're right.
Something else you don't see every day: the Sacramento Republic FG soccer team is making American sports history. The team announcing yesterday it has signed a 13-year-old, Devian Kimbrough, to a contract. That makes Kimbrough the youngest professional athlete in American team sports history at 13 years, 5 months, and 13 days.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's never been anything like it, I think.
There's never been anything like
Like,
this.
right.
I don't know how I feel about a 13-year-old on a professional sports team. Like, what happened to the focus being school? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, sadly, the focus is on money, and they think that 13-year-old can,
The teen came up through the Republic's development program. Officials say his signing is not a publicity stunt. Kimbrough could get his first action on the pitch for the big squad at the Republicans' next home match, August 26th. So,
Yeah.
pretty good little soccer
Albert,
player
you're the
there.
soccer guy. How do you feel about this? A 13-year-old competing?
Yeah, I'm not for it. I like the developmental, the process of them being with the club and going
Sure.
up to the ranks, but that's a little early.
Yeah, 13
Well, when you
is
have a
pretty early.
13-year-old who can compete with the older players, I don't know. But it just seems
Yeah.
like, are
Must
they
be quite a
mentally
phenom.
able? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it happened. It happened. I said it was going to pop, and here it did. Boom, the Mega Millions jackpot back to a modest $20 million. So don't
Somebody
bother
won it,
now.
huh?
It's over.
Yeah, we got.
It's only 20 million. It's not worth your time anymore. One ticket sold matched all the numbers in Tuesday night's drawing for a record-setting $1.58 billion prize. And the ticket was won in the glorious state of Florida.
Oh no!
Yes, indeed. Oh, maybe Wes won. If Wes won, we're in good shape. Everybody
Yeah,
else,
we do have
I
some
don't
listeners
know.
in Florida. Yes.
Yeah. This report is crowdfunded, which means we rely on you. You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. And I urge you to check out the website. It has a lot of features, including the Patreon and the PayPal link if you're so inclined to support the show. And of course, the Super Chat is live. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am overwhelmed by that canned applause. I really don't know what to say. A lot of people wouldn't drink it in the way I do, but I drink every drop. Somebody else who was canceled when the station went down was a great mind, a great political historian, a great speaker, but he's lived on, just as have we. He has his own podcast around the political world with John Rothman. He is a regular visitor on Wednesdays. John Rothman. Hi, John Rothman.
Good morning. I have to tell you, I listened to the Yellow Jacket story years ago. I was sliding on sand, on cardboard, and went over a Yellow Jacket nest. I want you to know, you talk about puns. It was a real stinger.
Oh,
And
that
it was just terrible. So people should be aware.
People should be aware of both the Yellow Jackets and the puns that await.
My words upset so many people.
So, John
Can I
Rothman.
also quickly
Yes, please.
come in on Hawaii. My niece and her husband have a condo which was devastated in the fire. My brother called me this morning to tell me they're fine because they're here and they have another house in Hawaii, so they're all right. But the destruction is overwhelming. And Kim, I immediately thought of you, knowing your Hawaii connection. And this is just a disaster. And I on the podcast this morning, I talked about the fact that we now have a situation in Hawaii, but we also have a situation in the United States. We have a situation in Europe. We have a situation in China of these extreme weather moments and the impact, which is profound. And I hope people understand that the issue of global warming is a real issue and one which needs to be understood in the context of what's happening in our world, not tomorrow, but today.
Well, I mean, in truth, decades ago, the warnings are decades old. This is exactly what the experts said would happen. I mean, this is a globe burning up. And there's a recession in sea ice. There is, as you suggested, this series of conflagrations across Asia, across Europe, in Hawaii, and in this country. Professor Rothman, indeed. Somebody said they started listening to your podcast because of this show, around the political world because of this show.
It's a wide range, and I'm very grateful for the fact that, and by the way, people can hear you and me because we send this, Albert sends this to my producer who downloads it and puts it up on the weekend.
Yeah, very, very cool. And it's our pleasure to, to spread the word. You're, I think, a great voice for so many different issues. So I do want to, as we step from the world of environment and what's happening with the globe, let's talk about politics, John Rothman. That's really your world. I mentioned before what's happening, and I think it's a real reminder of the power of the vote in Ohio, where they beat back a GOP, I feel, underhanded kind of, it was a referendum that was really snuck on to the summer schedule, which, as you know, is just a time when there's depressed voter turnout.
It was the only issue on the ballot. It was designed so that the constitutional amendment, which now requires 50% plus one, to be raised to 60%. And the reason they were doing this is because there will be on the ballot in November a measure dealing with the question of abortion in Ohio. And the Republicans, thinking there would be a lower voter turnout, thinking that people wouldn't pay attention, tried to put this over on the people of Ohio. And the most incredible thing was their response. And I have to tell you, if you listen to my podcast yesterday, I predicted this would happen. There was and will be a continuing backlash, not only in a state like Ohio, but in Kansas, for instance, where women understand the issue is not abortion. The issue is a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to control her own body. And I think the Republicans are on the wrong side of this, and I think they're going to pay a consequence at the polls, and I certainly hope they do.
There's no question they're on the wrong side of it. The question becomes your second point, which is, to what extent might they pay a price at the polls?
Well, certainly in control of the House. I think this is going to be a major issue. I think it's going to be a major issue in terms of the United States Senate. And I think in the presidential race, it's going to be a critical factor because people understand that if you have a Mike Pence as president, or a Donald Trump as president, or a Ron DeSantis as president, that there will be more restrictions attempted and imposed on women around this country. And so there has to be a backlash. There is a backlash, and may I say, a well-deserved backlash.
The number of openings, if you will, of open seats that will present themselves in the next election, does the Democratic Party have a chance, or do the number of open seats and the way they're opening in some of these districts, you mentioned the House, the heavily gerrymandered House races, does that favor the GOP in some way?
No, I think it favors the Democrats, and I'll tell you why. The Republicans now have a 4-vote lead in the House. That will be easily decimated. I really believe that, because it's not just the question of the Republican Party, it's what they claim to stand for. So what you're going to see in the Midwest is a reaction on Ukraine, because Republican candidates for president tend to be more isolationist. And remember, you have a large Eastern European community that exists in the Middle West. They're not going to vote for the Republicans on this. Women and people who believe in women's reproductive rights are not going to stand for this. And I think the Republicans are beginning to understand it. But here's the problem. They can't afford, that is, the Republican Party itself feels it can't afford to alienate its base. And the base may get Donald Trump the nomination for president, but it's not going to get him elected president of the United States. But that applies to all the Republicans. And so I say this with some regret. Once upon a time, the Republican Party was the party that advocated for the Equal Rights Amendment, that advocated for women's rights. And they have completely isolated themselves. And may I just quickly say, it isn't just women, Mark. It's men like me who believe strongly that women should control their own bodies. If somebody tried to control my body, trust me, they'd have a fight on their hands. So I think that's what's happening. May I just quickly throw in, you mentioned the question of Donald Trump this morning. The New York Times has a cover story this morning that is quite remarkable. It turns out that one of the unindicted co-conspirators, who may well be indicted, prepared a memo in advance of the election outlining how the Republicans could throw up roadblocks to a Biden victory. Now, he put all kinds of escape clauses in the memo saying, well, it may not be right, there may be contests about it, but it will put the focus on, I'm telling you, this is an incriminating memo. And I have to remember that it was exactly 49 years ago today that Richard Nixon left the presidency of the United States. August 9th was when the resignation became effective. And remember that the question of obstruction of justice was one of the critical issues. And the idea that Donald Trump did, in fact, obstruct justice is reinforced by this memo. Certainly his lawyers were completely aware of it. Certainly John Eastman was completely aware of it. And I believe this will have an impact as well.
I think the obstruction of justice on any number of issues, you're talking about essentially J6, or you're talking about the effort to overthrow
that's the beauty of this. It is not January 6th. It's what happened before.
No, I was just about to say it's
the attempt to legally obstruct an American presidential election.
Right.
It is, in my judgment, sedition, although that word is not used in the indictment. But
because that's a squishy word, that's the reason they avoided it in the indictment. Yeah. But the reality is, John, that you're right. And that memo actually specified, the memo to which you referred, actually, which is just revealed in these New York Times pieces, they specifically know that this will likely be overturned at the Supreme Court level. Those words are there. This will likely be overturned at the Supreme Court, but they suggest this will buy us more time to pursue our court cases and sow more doubt about the legitimacy of the election. That was their plan.
I think it is a nail in the coffin of the defenders of Donald Trump. By the way, are you following what his lawyers are saying? His lawyers can't agree on a strategy. Trump is contradicting his lawyers. And may I tell you that Donald Trump's language last night in his rally was absolutely appalling, and the accusations he's making are ridiculous. But let me put it in a bottom line. Donald Trump may well be the Republican nominee for president. I think it's very logical that he could be, even if he's indicted. As I've pointed out before, even if he were indicted and convicted, he could run for president, as Eugene V. Debs did in 1920, as the socialist candidate for president, and received almost 1 million votes in that campaign. But the Republican Party has to wake up. They have to understand what Donald Trump is doing to the Republican Party. And I've said it before on this program, and I'll say it again. Donald Trump Jr. on the ellipse on January 6th said, it is no longer the Republican Party. It is the party of Trump. And if that's the case, we are in deep trouble because we need a vital, vibrant two-party system. So I think that the next thing you and I are going to be looking at, I hope by next Wednesday, will be the indictment from Georgia, which is going to be quite a remarkable document.
And those it was pertaining to that the Trump remarks that you were shaming essentially just a moment ago. I think those are the remarks that you're talking about, right? He went after the Attorney General there in Georgia, yes?
the district attorney.
District attorney, sorry, yeah, district attorney.
And she's a black woman, and he's going after her with all of the innuendo and connotation that involves. But let me assure everyone, that indictment is going to be airtight as well. And so these are going to be issues we're going to be debating. Could Donald Trump, in the midst of 4 major indictments, be nominated by the Republican Party? Well, just remember, the Republicans now have a new rule. Winner take all. So if you win a majority of the votes in a primary or a caucus, you get those delegates. And it is going to be a remarkable moment. I think we are just getting ready. But let me also point out to you that there are some running for the Republican nomination, including DeSantis, who said they would pardon Donald Trump. Let me be clear. A president can be pardoned on federal charges. He could be, but not on state charges. So one way or the other, the noose is tightening on Donald Trump. And I don't say that with any joy. I'm not happy that we have had a president of the United States who has brought such dishonor to our country and to the electoral process.
It's interesting, John, the more you speak and the more you speak about the legal walls closing in, the more I come to, and this is a reiteration for people who watch this show regularly, because I've made this point before, his only escape hatch is winning the presidency.
Yes.
So it's really all about politics now and not about law. So his lawyers disagree. They're delaying what legal strategy he's going to pursue. Doesn't matter in a way. It is going to come down to the election. Now, if he doesn't win the presidential election, that I think is an interesting hypothetical, John. And we've touched on it before, and we'll touch on it again. Because I think the institutions of Washington, many of which you refer to along the way here, because you're such a great historian on political stuff and on Washington stuff, I think those institutions may protect him, just for the reasons you said. They can't bear to see a U.S. president, shamed in this way.
Let me offer this. I worked for Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon there's a new book coming out about Richard Nixon, and the only blurb on the book is my blurb. I didn't write the book, but it's a brilliant book by Paul Carter. Richard Nixon, the Republican Party owed him up the kazoo. They didn't stick with him when the truth was out. Some of his constituents, some of the people who believed in him did. But I really believe in the fundamental integrity of the American people, just like I believe in the voters in Ohio. The voters
John,
in
they
Ohio
pardoned him. They pardoned him. How can you say they didn't stand by him? Jerry Ford pardoned him.
No, yes, but Richard Nixon, and I urge people to listen to the David Frost interview with Richard Nixon, in which he says, I impeached myself. I gave them the sword and they thrust it into me. And we now know, when you talk about Richard Nixon objectively, there were things he did in his presidency which were very positive, very good. The war on cancer, the opening to China, détente with Russia. You can go down the list. There were a lot of things he did that were wrong. No question about it. The same kind of evaluation has to be given to Donald Trump. There were things which he did which some will consider to be positive, and he deserves credit for those, as any president does. But his desecration of the Constitution, his contempt for the Constitution, his contempt for his oath of office, rings through every news story coming out. And I have to do something, Mark, that's a terrible thing maybe to say, but I really believe it. I have to have faith in the American people. I know the American people make mistakes. I know we've blown a lot of things in history, and we could go a whole recitation of all the things we've done wrong. But fundamentally, I believe the American people will get it. And because Smith's indictment is so clear, so precise, so ambiguous, you will note that none of Trump's lawyers have said the charges aren't true. They're saying that what he's doing is going after Trump on free speech. Nonsense, rubbish. And we need to make sure that people understand what the actual charges are. Remember, what caught Richard Nixon, with all of his denials and all that, was one tape, June 23rd, where he and Bob Haldeman conspired to have the FBI and the CIA cover up Watergate. And that was what did it. And the Republican Party and the people of America have the good sense to understand it. And we had better do the same thing with Donald Trump. I know it's almost redundant, and I have to think very carefully when I do my podcast. How often can I talk about Donald Trump? Well, let me tell you, we're in a battle for the soul of American democracy. And there can be a relentless endeavor to expose what this man has done and continues to do. That's the end of my sermon, Mark, but I wanted to make it clear.
I'll ding desecration, and I will ding a recitation. Very, very strong offering from Brother Rothman. Well, you know, I don't have the faith that you do in the American people, and I don't have the faith that you do in the American institutions. In fact, I think they are poorly constructed for today's America. I think the system is easily gamed. It's being easily gamed every hour on Capitol Hill with a Senate which provides us in California the same crappy representation that they get in North Dakota, South Dakota. They've gamed the Senate so we don't even have a legitimate shot at the people's voice being reflected there.
You know what the founders said about that? The founders said it was like a cup of tea, and that the saucer cooled the beverage, which is what allowed for the American system to work. So I'm going to make a deal with you, because you and I are going to be doing this for many, many years to come, Mark.
All right.
Let's see what happens. Whether my faith is sustained or your faith is upheld, let's see. We'll find out.
Look, on the Trump thing, I would say if the election's held today, or if it is indeed Biden versus Trump, I would think Biden should beat him. But that's
overwhelmingly.
That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make a point about the institutions of America and how this American, and a great love for this country, feels as though there are flaws. We need to open up the hood on a few things. I mean, the Supreme. Yeah, well, of course, there have always been flaws.
We could do a historical retrospective on the United States of America and point out all of the flaws. But the bottom line must be, for your safety and my safety and the safety of all of those listening to this broadcast, we have to believe that in the end, even if we make mistakes, America tries to do the right thing. I realize the imperfections in the system, but Donald Trump is not going to escape justice, just as Richard Nixon did not escape justice. And I think that is the key to the faith that I have in American democracy.
Yeah, and there you go. You got Kevin saying, "Sorry, Mark, recent elections say otherwise." I'm not saying that the elections can't be won by the Democrats or even won by the righteous. I mean, that is to say, the more righteous causes. We just saw it in Ohio. I talked about that. And at some point, they push so far in this lunacy that they pursue that you'd think that the people do bite back. But what I am talking about is the institutions of government that have been seized, for example, by the Supreme Court. You now have legislation from the bench. The reason for that is that Congress has ground to a halt. This hyper-partisan environment in Washington has forced Congress into this stalemate. And so the Supreme Court swoops in and they do it all.
Let me just remind you, the same argument about legislation from the bench was used against the Supreme Court in Brown versus the Board of Education. These are recurring political arguments which take place. But let me point out to you what the Chief Justice of the United States did on this ghost gun provision in a stunning reversal of what many people thought would be a clear victory for gun rights. The Supreme Court put a hold on that, upheld the Biden administration. No, I understand the imperfections. Look at Roe v. Wade, for God's sake, being overturned. But then I look at Ohio. And if you believe in the expression, the people shall rule, in the end, I believe everything will sort itself out. We may have a lot of things to talk about, but
yeah, and we will. And I don't mean to try to get the last word at all, John. I have immense respect for your opinion.
It's your show.
But what I would say, but what I would say just about that point about Ohio is, Ohio and that vote, you can be encouraged by it, but it wouldn't have been necessary had the Supreme Court not been jacked by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, and this court would not have this supermajority, John.
You're right. And I wouldn't be having chocolate cake for lunch if it weren't for my diet. I mean, come on. Mark.
Okay, so that's
Have
the way it
faith
was.
in the
All right.
system.
He's John Rothman. The podcast is Around the Political World with John Rothman. We love him. Our former colleague from KGO. We continue on. And one of my favorite things is going round and around with Rothman.
And we'll do it again next Wednesday, and I look forward. Who knows what may happen by Wednesday?
John Rothman, everybody. How about it for him? Yeah, right on, John. Bye-bye.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, a lot there. I like Brother Rothman and I kind of kicking it around. Albert, I saw some along the way, some nominations for, there's Wes. $5 super sticker. Thank you so much, Wes. Shout out to Wes. Come on.
You.
Shout out.
Yeah. Tough day with everything going on in Hawaii. I nominate Eric as the first rando. Eric Kennedy. Yeah, he's very good, very vocal. He may be the first rando, if you're just joining us, a random listener who writes us an email at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, just has to say, hey, it's, whomever, and I want to talk about whatever, and we'll send you a link, and you'll be joining us probably tomorrow. Andreas would be a good rando. Where's he been? I think he's in Greece. I think he was listening to the show in Greece, Julie. That's what I'm remembering. So I think Buck Meadows would be a great rando, says Sandy. Buck is very funny. Buck is very active. Could be. Any of these people, if they send an email, we'll get it organized. And boo Mark for bad play on words. Yes, I reprimanded Kim for the play on words, but I have immense respect for her. Sometimes it's irresistible.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. Andreas is in Greece, says Wes, so he's not always on here. Very late in the day or evening there. Yeah, Greece has been affected by fires too, as has Europe right now. Through Italy, there are fires. In addition to Hawaii, I mentioned it in that context. The world is burning up. I say it all the time, and it's there's a human tragedy, a natural tragedy, and I feel as though we do have a chance, but we really have to rally the human species on the wholesale level. And individual communities. We know it in the Bay Area, know it in Southern California, know it throughout California. It's and the West. It's an ongoing front and center issue and concern. So, Kim's news, and then a guest joins us bottom of the hour. New book is being very well received. I mean, great reviews on this new book. It's called Strip Tees, T-E-E-S, T-E-E-S for T-shirts, right? An insider account of American Apparel's toxic culture from Kate Flannery. And the book is her journey, which is fascinating. Strip Tees, a memoir of Millennial Los Angeles. That'll happen bottom of the hour. So thanks for being here. Smash the like button on this serious day with everything going on in Hawaii. We'll watch that situation for you. Kim's news upcoming. And then, as I say, Kate will join us bottom of the hour. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and let's go right to this devastating news in Hawaii. I got my flower in honor of everything happening there, but let's look at Front Street. Here's what it looks like as this historic whaling village burns to the ground. This was earlier today, Front Street in flames. Another picture here, as you can see, part of Maui burning. Yeah, smoke at the beach is what it looks like. The story is this devastating wildfire is now being monitored by the White House. The unprecedented wildfires have damaged structures. They've prompted rescue efforts across both Maui, and also there are at least 4 brush fires burning on the Big Island of Hawaii as well. These fires have been fanned by strong winds from a hurricane. The governor of Hawaii now saying that they do expect there to be this fire to have fatal implications, a loss of life, very likely, although not confirmed as of yet. I did get a really lovely message from the Red Jack, from Lori Above the Bar, who has now added to our Martini, Maduro Mule, and Kimikaze a special on Big Wave beer to benefit the charities in Hawaii. She writes, "We're so heartbroken watching the coverage. Hawaii, and especially Maui, is a special place for us. Later, when you get a chance, and I will, Lori, can you post any local charities or link ways to help with the recovery? You know, there's always scams after a tragedy like this, so we'll make sure we get the right information for you and put together a list of places, if you're inclined to donate or you would like to help, that are legitimate sources for you to do so." But Lori writes, "We are going to start today with a little fund, getting a fund together with a beer special, because it's the only way I know how to deal with things." She says, "We're thinking and praying for all those cliche things that people say, but we really mean it." That's from Lori and Mark at the Red Jack.
Oh, that's
in San
beautiful.
Francisco.
Yeah, that really is special.
On to former President Trump, who there was a memo given to the New York Times allegedly showing how the former president sought to overturn the results of the 2020 election using fake slates of electors. So they've got the memo now, and they're laying it all out for us. The Times released this copy of the internal memo drafted by a Trump lawyer, supposedly laying out the plan to create electors to vote for Trump in multiple states. The effort, of course, a key piece in the Department of Justice's charges against Trump in his election interference charges. But now we have a little more information about how this was allegedly plotted out. Hunter Biden, we'll talk about him as well. And I don't have a picture. My bad. I'm sorry. But I will tell you that Hunter Biden and his business associates received millions of dollars in payments from foreign entities while Joe Biden was vice president, is what they're saying. That, according to the House Oversight Committee, which released a memo today along with bank records showing the payments. President Biden, of course, denying having any involvement in his son's business deals, and there's no proof detailing otherwise. So,
well, I would say
yeah.
this about that. Because I like to be fair. The trading of the name is something that has been going on in Washington and been going on through society, for ages. So during the time that Joe Biden was vice president, Hunter Biden, it seems, and this is if you take the worst interpretation of this story, meaning the most damning interpretation to Hunter and Joe Biden. So we're going to take the Republican view of it. I mean, I'm talking about the legit evidentiary view, not the name calling and creating ridiculous charges. It is true that Hunter Biden traded on his name. He was able to get monies directed to him. He was able to serve on boards of energy companies, et cetera, as a result of being a Biden. I think there's no question about that. That isn't illegal. It is awful. It is loathsome, but it is legal. The thing that I have a problem with Joe Biden on is that he would get on any number of calls and he didn't do anything. Again, this is based on their star witnesses, the GOP star witnesses, that say, well, he came on, but he said very, tepid things like, it was all, how's the weather there? Well, it's great to meet you all. I've got to go. Never anything about the actual blocking and tackling of whatever deal they wanted to make or whatever business arrangement there was with Hunter. And here I make my conclusion then. So if Joe Biden is guilty, and I use it in air quotes because it's not actually illegal, if he's guilty of anything, it's just getting on those calls and in a way, allowing Hunter then to create the impression that he gave an S about what was going on with Hunter Biden's business deals. Because the truth is, I don't think Joe Biden any more than just supporting as a father cared. That's my sense of it. I don't know. Show me evidence. And as I say, look, I'm coming out this far. I'll go all the way. If the dude, literally, Joe Biden was involved in some kind of backroom deal, let me see it. I'm happy to go. But what I would say is Hunter created the impression that he had a line into Joe, and Joe was on enough calls that he allowed Hunter to create that impression. But I don't think Joe created the impression. Joe Biden didn't work to create the impression. He just was there, and Hunter created the impression. End of speech.
Do you think that Joe Biden knew, though, that his name was being used maybe to cultivate business?
I think it's implicit. I think it's absolutely implicit. It's understood. You know, hey, Dad, I'm doing business with these guys. Can you just come on and say hello to them? That's all you have to do. Say hello. Yeah. And the mere hello is enough to create the impression, you know, that there is a line into the dad. And then Hunter does the rest, which is, well, let me take this to my dad and see. It's all BS. But there is no evidence, none, that Joe Biden got a dime on all of this. So I really think Joe Biden's sin was allowing his son to work him as a prop to create the impression that there was a line into him and that he cared about the business deal.
The Iowa State Fair that opens, tomorrow actually, offers a critical test for Republican presidential candidates not named Donald Trump. Polling shows the former president holding a big lead over all the other candidates for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination. But I guess they all flocked to the fair here in Iowa to shake hands and hold babies and muster some support.
Yeah, it's where they go to have deep fried political hopes, right? Yeah.
Deep fried Twinkie political aspirations.
Yeah. How many of these do I have to eat to get on the ballot? You know? Yeah.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's a deep fried scene, Larry. Yeah. All the political candidates are here riding the rides and kissing babies.
What can you tell us about the scene?
And maybe not kissing as much because of COVID.
Yuck. Let's talk about Cardinal Newman. This is a pretty big school in the North Bay, and apparently there is my computer's frozen and stuck. There is a problem at Cardinal Newman because a former student is suing the school and the campus leaders, claiming discrimination and retaliation. This student was kicked off the football team and then expelled from school earlier this year. He says campus leaders did it to retaliate against him for speaking out about racist and discriminatory comments that he and other football players of color endured at the hands of the head coach. The 17-year-old boy, who is Black, says Cardinal Newman High School failed to supervise head coach Richard Sanchez. He also says it failed to protect him from bullying, harassment, and racism. Comedian Chris Tucker will head out on his first stand-up tour in more than a decade next month. The actor, known for roles in films like Rush Hour and Friday, announced the Legend Tour 2023 will kick off September 8th in North Charleston, South Carolina. Tucker says he loves performing live. He's looking forward to getting back to his roots. And
why has it been 10 years since Chris Tucker's been out performing live?
Doing other things, then COVID hit, and before you know it, 10 years is gone.
I see. Okay.
I'm guessing. I don't know. We'll end this with some science news because the planet Mars is spinning faster. Uh-oh. Does that mean it's going to blow up? I don't know. Belgian scientists say data from NASA's decommissioned InSight Mars lander led them to discover the planet's rotation is accelerating by about 4 milliseconds per year.
You know who was involved in that research, actually, was
Emil Schaffhausen.
Oh,
the third. Yeah.
Yes.
The Belgian scientist, Dr. Emil Schaffhausen.
He does all the best research.
Yeah.
So 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. The scientists say it could be from the ice accumulating on the polar caps, which results in a rise in land mass. Officials say they'll continue analyzing this data, trying to figure out exactly what it means that Mars is spinning faster. This report is crowdfunded, which means we rely on you. You can check us out at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. The Patreon link is there. The PayPal link is there. Lots of cool stuff is there. And of course, here on the show, the Super Chat is live. Thompson 2024. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Know what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar. You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret now?
Doesn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Yeah, you know it. Great to have you all with us. I am excited about. I just got an email to possibly join the Talk to a Rando segment.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, forwarded it on. It's not. It's kind of. I guess I might even call it cryptic in what he wants to talk about. Cryptic, I guess, would be a ding word. But I sent it on to you, Kim, and sent it on to you, Albert, because you are the producer of the show. He references Maui. Jim is his name. I'm thinking we can maybe talk to him tomorrow. We can send him a link. If I know we're having the meeting right on the air, but you can see it, and we'll look at what other entries there might be in to Talk to a Rando. If you're just joining us, a random listener, viewer will join us. All you have to do is send us a simple email, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, and tell us who you are and why you want to join us. And we will send you a link, and you will join us on the show. So we'll see how it goes. It's a brand new segment, but we just, I think it's sort of notable that he's talking about Hawaii a little bit. So that might be interesting. Yeah. I also wanted to tell you that I got an email from...
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I got this one from Randy, who says, just got back from a family vacation to Idaho, nice town in McCall, Idaho. Beautiful area on a big lake about 2 hours north of Boise, about 110 miles from Boise, as he says. You have some friends who live up there. Anyway, they both owned or own EVs, and I thought their experiences would be relevant to the EV discussion in California. This is a lengthy email I will try to summarize. Apparently, there's only one Tesla service center in Idaho. It's in Boise, and that might get better as we move forward in time, he says. Does it need to be serviced, your Tesla, Mark, or repaired at a Tesla facility in order to keep the warranty? Probably it does. The other person there bought an EV, an Audi SUV. She purchased one of the first models of that vehicle from Audi, and she indicates that she uses it for local driving and for driving between McCall and Boise. But she goes any further, she rents another car. So he goes on to say that the California mandate, which is starting in 2025, allowing for an 80-20 mix of EVs and hybrids in terms of new car sales in California, that is going to be something to watch. As I reflect on Randy and his comments and other correspondences, he's not a fan of the rapid ramp up to EV in California because he feels, for a lot of reasons, the electric grid isn't there, the number of charging stations isn't sufficient. So he says what would be interesting is to understand the difference in total emissions in California if the fleet of new vehicles sold in 2035 were either all EVs or 80-20 EVs or whatever, 50-50 split. He said, I've gone looking and I can't find any such study. So I also can't find anything that indicates the metrics that California is using to indicate if 2035 EV mandates is actually feasible from the perspective of several factors. That's what I'm talking about, the infrastructure, all the stuff that he normally refers to. So good email and thorough email that I sort of summarized a little bit from Randy. Thank you for that. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it now. I think that this is to apologize for my email last night. Please delete. Oh, yeah, okay. Don't worry, Buck. We love you. All's good. And a big shout out.
Big shout out.
The thing I say about California and the sort of doctrine of going to electric vehicles is I think it's not underpinned completely by data. I don't think it's underpinned by some huge study. I think it's underpinned by an imperative to make a change that I think these changes relate to two things at minimum. One is the toxic brew that we live in California. And I don't know, honestly, if that's the real imperative that's felt, but it's a fact. I mean, breathing in all of these toxic fumes, it is carcinogenic. It produces emphysema. You've seen the studies, and there are many studies about those who have residences are close to major freeways or streets and how the health of their children and even adults in the household is affected by that, and dramatically compared to those who don't live as close. But the second thing that underpins it is a desire to get off of fossil fuels because of the imperative associated with global warming and human-caused climate change. And so California is saying, hey, we've got a big economy and we can do it. Those are the things that I think, at minimum, are underpinning this. Are they rushing it? I don't know. In my opinion, it should have been done years ago. But you have to fight so many special interests along the way. And there are no special interests as powerful as the fossil fuel industry. So I think that's what's happening, Randy. I don't think there are a bunch of studies to back it all up.
If you look at which industry is more powerful at swooping in and getting their way, would you say fossil fuel or gun?
Fossil fuel.
Okay.
But it's a close race. I mean, gun gets what they want, but in terms of the blast of money and total control over leadership internationally, not just in America, not even close. Fossil fuels. And fossil fuels, as you know, that industry, they've been aware of the climate crisis and the man-made nature of it since the 70s, maybe even the 60s. And they've buried all of that. But they've also looked to exploit it. As there is recession in sea ice, maybe we can drill in those areas too, and they are. And now that they're complete fights, international battles over who has the rights to that. So the drill, baby, drill, I'm afraid, is something we have a death grip on, and it pains me to say it, but I just think as a species, greed drives us, and our ability to see into the future is a truly special one, and yet here we are with the future so clear. I mean, we're living the future now, and we have a chance to have an effect on it, and we just don't do anything. We just don't do anything. I mean, in a big enough way. So, but I would say, hey, look, forget about climate change and the climate crisis. Get those toxins out of the environment. Don't you want fewer toxins? Don't you want fewer of the less plastic, less in the way of the PFAS, the forever chemicals, less in the way of all that exhaust I'm talking about that you breathe in? It goes deep into your lungs. We've done those stories here. For that reason alone, I mean, even if, we're all living a death sentence, I get it.
Yeah.
But for that reason alone, don't you want to make a safer place and a healthier place for your kids and your grandkids? Yeah. So, yeah.
I say again, Thompson 2024.
2024. I have the Trump 2024, but I don't. This computer's down right now, so I can't play it. But anyway, that's that. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Dianne Feinstein sadly fell at her home
stumble.
in the city. Yeah. I don't know. They're saying it wasn't a big deal.
A little trip and fall. She had to go to the hospital. She was in there for a while. She's back home now.
Oh, is that right? It's, gotta say, she's 90. Whenever you fall at 90, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But she's had all these different medical setbacks, as you're aware, with the shingles, et cetera. But she was absent from Washington for a long time, but then she was back there. She's her presence on the Judiciary Committee, that is not an incidental thing. It's a big deal. Without her, you're in a deadlock. It's a 10-10 tie, right? She puts you to 11-10. And you need Dianne Feinstein in there. I mean, even though, she doesn't have the energy and the vitality that she once had, and I'm sure there is a Weekend at Bernie's quality to all this, but sorry, dude, you got to have her if you want these confirmations from the justice for justices. You're going to need her.
How much longer is her term? I think, what is it? It ends next year, right? So I think she's coming to a close on this career.
Yes. But she is, her seat may be taken by, Adam Schiff is the clear front runner, but Katie Porter, I think, would be terrific. And Barbara Lee would be terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lexi Reese is in there too, the former tech executive. But Schiff seems like the odds-on favorite to get it. But as I say, there are other, look, a Democrat is going to get that seat, so that doesn't change the consistency of anything particularly. But that's the latest on Dianne Feinstein. There's disturbing news out of Florida that I wanted to share with you, and it's right in your world of wokeness and all that BS that they throw at us. Large school districts across Florida are dropping plans to offer advanced placement psychology because of a warning from state officials in Florida that the course's discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity violates state law. 8 of the 11 districts with the largest enrollments in the class are switching to alternate courses. Just one said it will stick with the advanced placement psychology class. The state of Florida has encouraged schools to teach the course without the objectionable material about sexual orientation and gender identity. But the College Board, which runs advanced placement, says that these topics are central to the study of psychology. You can't simply excise those subjects. Excise is a ding word.
You mean you can't only teach half the class? You have to teach the whole class?
Exactly. Thank you.
Imagine that. Wow.
So the College Board is saying the course is effectively banned in Florida if you abide by the state's edicts. Further complicating the matter, a day later, Florida's education chief told districts that his agency believes the schools can offer the course in its entirety, but also said it should be in a manner that is age and developmentally appropriate. The state, of course, has said that teaching school-age students about sexual orientation and gender is inappropriate. So, what's the age? How do you decide? It's crazy. The Brevard County Schools and School District is in a no-win situation, they say in a statement, because the College Board made it clear that any course that removed the objectionable material would not be certified as advanced placement. Quote, in essence, if we don't teach all of the content, our students will not receive AP credit. If we do teach all the content, our instructors will violate the law. Therefore, we will not offer AP psychology at any of our high schools this year.
Disappointing.
It's been taught for 30 years in Florida with no issues.
Apparently now it's a big deal.
Thousands of kids, 562 schools. And now they have to get rid of it because of this absurdity about wokeness. I mean, at bare minimum, we can agree that this does apply to psychology. How can we not do something to address it as AP psychology courses go on in Florida?
Well, I mean,
it's really a travesty.
In addition to the learning, you want kids to know about the world around them and to be taught these subjects. But in addition to the loss of learning here, also kids in Florida won't be able to get the extra AP class to bump up their GPAs or college credit for these classes, or they have the ability to take the AP test in psychology. And so this affects the entry into college, I would argue.
Exactly. Oh, no, I think you'd argue it correctly. And it's not the only AP class affected. Hey, the other AP class that's affected is the African American Studies class, right? So this year, and Albert, you saw the note from about, okay, you're on it. Good. The AP African American Studies class, a pilot version of it was rejected by state officials earlier this year. Quote, it lacks educational value. Ron DeSantis accused the course architects of promoting a political agenda. Last month, the governor and the GOP presidential contender, DeSantis, drew fire after Florida's curriculum standards directed that students learn that enslaved people developed skills that could be applied for their personal benefit. I mean, that was utterly absurd, craziness, and I think it was vilified largely, but still talked about. Anyway, this week, the Tampa Bay Times reported that Hillsborough County English teachers are being told to teach excerpts from some William Shakespeare plays instead of the full texts. A district spokeswoman said the decision was made to prepare students for state testing while also taking new state laws into consideration. They're pulling out of plays like William Shakespeare's plays anything that they feel may have any sexual content.
Shakespeare a little sexy, huh? Who knew?
Shakespeare was sexy, as it turns out. But
Romeo and Juliet, little love, little murder.
Yeah, well,
come on.
That's not fake. That's real.
Actually, it's fake. It's
Shakespeare is what gets me hot. I don't know about you. Watch out for the kids in high school.
Oh, wow.
Kim, how are you?
All right. Smash the like button for Kim.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Appreciate everybody being here. We've got a special author with us next, so let's make that happen.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, is everything okay with Kate? What's our situation? I like to check in with the producer before I...
Yeah, everything's good.
Pell-mell into things. All right, good. So I want you to welcome someone who is being very well spoken of, as her book has been reviewed and celebrated across media nationwide. The book is called Strip Tease, T-E-E-S, a memoir of millennial Los Angeles. It's really an insider's account into American Apparel and what was revealed to be the toxic culture of American Apparel. But her journey is an interesting one, how she ended up there and then what she saw when she got there. How about it for our guest, Kate Flannery, everybody. Hi, Kate.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, Kate. So first of all, congratulations on the book. It's being very well spoken of.
Thank you.
This is your first book, right?
It is indeed. It is my debut.
Yeah.
My debut memoir.
Tell me about you, because you do talk about this, the journey that you took. You grew up where?
I grew up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. The polar opposite of Los Angeles, if you know anything about northeastern Pennsylvania. Scranton nearby.
Mm-hmm. And you from that place end up at Bryn Mawr? You went to school at Bryn Mawr?
Yes, indeed. I went to Bryn Mawr, and I After I graduated, I was a creative writing major. I got a job in Philadelphia working for the headquarters of Urban Outfitters. I was doing their copywriting. I was the Elaine Bennis of Urban Outfitters. I was writing their catalogs. I was also writing the text on their website. And while I was there, I really sort of became very disenchanted with, corporate office culture and what it really meant to work in fashion. And I would see in the catalogs, what we were selling something for versus what we were paying some sweatshop to make it. And the whole thing, as an idealistic young college graduate, really turned me off. It made me really ripe for the picking for a company like American Apparel that prided itself on being a kind of ethical capitalism, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I mean, but that is, it's interesting because the brand did have nothing but positivity around it for a long time, American Apparel, huh?
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. It seemed that the CEO really sort of, he showed his true colors very early on.
Well, but wasn't it celebrated? I always saw him talked about early on. I'm talking about American Apparel as a business innovator, as having sort of identified a part of the retail market that no one else really had exploited.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he certainly was innovative, and he proved that that system of making everything right here in downtown Los Angeles and paying everyone fairly and not resorting to sweatshops, you could still turn a profit and, have fun while doing it and build a huge brand and change the shape of fashion of the moment. He's very innovative man. He's a very complex man.
I want to double back to American Apparel in a second, but I also want people to know that your profile extends beyond American Apparel and the Elaine Bennis thing. You you were in a band? You were in a Little Richard cover band, weren't you? Also, I mean, you're really an interesting person. I was just reading about your, all the different stuff you've been involved in.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, post American Apparel, I'm also a musician. I grew up doing music and singing, and I found myself starting a Little Richard cover band with my friends, and we are called Big Dick, which is a play on Little Richard. I'm not like a total deviant naming my band.
Got it.
And in an insane turn of events, we ended up having an original member of Little Richard's band, Charles Keep a Knockin' Connor, legendary drummer, join our band. I really feel like we're like the only cover band that had an original member join. And your obsession, I won't call it, I mean, the word obsession comes to mind, but your fandom around Little Richard was owing to, I'm a fan of Little Richard too. So I always, I don't know how it started. He just seems so, as a kid, I thought, wow, this guy's really he's so out there, Yeah. I mean, he is truly the father of rock and roll. Like, being in this camp of people that knew him, like even Elvis called Little Richard, the father of rock and roll. He's the real king of rock and roll. And so, my parents are like silent generation. I'm like the baby of the family, the surprise. So I grew up listening to a lot of 50s music. But then in the 90s, when I was sort of an adolescent, Little Richard was really having like a renaissance. He was on Pee-wee's Playhouse. He was on Blossom. He was really like doing he was sort of having a comeback of sorts. So I grew up with Little Richard in that way too. And through Big Dick, I've met Little Richard. I've gone on stage with him. I've gone backstage with Little Richard when there is no one backstage. I was at his second to last show, and he was yelling about Big Dick. Like, we got the thumbs up from the man. Like, Big Dick is everything.
That's terrific. I love that. I absolutely love it. Well, all right. So, and I'll double back again to, some of your other endeavors if there's time, but let me,
I could talk about Big Dick all night. Like,
I want to return to the American Apparel thing, because your journey then, you were saying you're at Urban Outfitters, you're kind of disappointed with the way that they sourced a lot of their inventory, et cetera. So you go to American Apparel. It was sort of breakthrough kind of label and business. And then take us on a mini version of the journey that you chronicle in your book.
Sure. Sort of on a whim, I moved to Los Angeles. I'm like looking for some excitement. I had some friends that moved. And when I got here, copywriting jobs were slim. And just on a night at the bar, I was approached by a beautiful young woman with a card saying, you know, do you need a job? I was like, oh my God, yes, where have you been? She gave me the spiel on American Apparel, and man, did it sound good to me. I went to the factory. I was sold hook, line, and sinker. I started as sales in the very first American Apparel store in Echo Park. And
sales means you're actually working the floor.
Oh yeah, working the floor, which, you know, I had just graduated from Bryn Mawr. I was feeling like a snob, you know, I'm a writer. But, you know, they were like, this company is growing so rapidly. You know, prove yourself here and you'll move on to bigger and better things. And that is what happened. Very shortly thereafter, I started scouting for the company, started hiring, and that became my full-time job. Whenever we would open a store in a new city, I would fly to that city and hang out and scout hipsters and give them jobs.
Well, that's what they were looking for, right? They were looking for a hip crowd. And you talk about that in your book because that's not an incidental point.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I feel like every corporation looks for their people. And I sometimes American Apparel gets accused of like, oh, we were hiring for attractive people. But that's really not the case, not in my hiring anyway. I looked for people that had experience and would show up on time. Most importantly, that's what separated me as a scout from other scouts in the company. They'd be like,
we're looking for that same thing here, Kate. Maybe you could, we can't find either.
It's very tricky. It's very tricky. But yeah, we were just hiring for people that understood the brand and, excuse me. And yeah.
So from there, you were on the retail floor. You do rise within the organization, right?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I'm distracted.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, I rose through the ranks very quickly after that. And I witnessed a lot of Doug Charney's bad behavior.
Charney, he's the. Give us the profile on him real quick, if you would. He runs the place.
Yes, he is the charismatic, problematic founder of American Apparel, the man with the dream, the man who makes it all happen, and who also brought the company down at the very end.
Right. So as you rise and you begin to hire all of these people who show up on time and have some experience, and you do see the company expanding, right? It's expanding, it's growing. It's, you know, the promises that you were given at the bar that night, they are being realized from a business standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. The thing that's the most amazing about American Apparel is that these big business decisions, this company is being run by 19-year-old girls with no experience except their own canny knack, their own sort of natural abilities. You know, all fashion comes from youth culture. Like that's where it starts. That's where fashion trends come from. And Doug Charney is maybe not the most stylish man, but he surrounded himself with youth, knowing that that's the only way to, you know, feel the pulse of youth. So, yeah.
So what happens, Kate? Where does it go south?
Well, Dove loved to date his employees, his teenage employees. And I was doing a lot of mental gymnastics around that. You know, these were consensual relationships. You know, no one's being branded here, or like the hot yoga guy, you know, like nothing like that is going on. But now, you know, with in hindsight, the dynamics of power and an age difference, you know, he's 35, these girls are in their some of them are in their early 20s. You know, you just, there's just too much of a power imbalance there.
Well, it was, I mean, and, you know, 35 to, you know, 20s, you know, it does happen. The power imbalance is probably the really disturbing thing. And then you saw stuff beyond that, didn't you? I mean, it was not just the, well, you know, he's older than she is and he's her boss. It got beyond that too, right?
Oh, yeah. Very disturbing things. Striptease is full of them, of, you know,
I mean, these parties and, you almost had to sign on to various, I'm going to just use, kink, I guess I'll use that word, to be cool at American Apparel. I mean, at least to deal with him.
We were sort of enacting the fantasies of a grown man whose libido came about in the 1970s. And so there we were wearing the gym socks and the short shorts and just sort of, that was a realization I came to much later. We just looked like the same hustler mags that were on the walls of the store. Like that's what we were.
So at the time, you didn't get it. That's what you say when you're doing the mental gymnastics. You were looking the other way, or you were just rationalizing it, or what was happening at the time? You do a lot of that. Well, in hindsight, I see such and such.
I think an important part of the whole world of American Apparel that we haven't talked about is like the cultural canvas of the time, which is the early 2000s. We're post 9/11. We're in the era of the celebrity sex tape, and Playboy is back. To have a Playboy spread is a big deal. And the girls have gone wild. Young women at the time were really towing the line between sex positivity and sexual liberation and just sexual exploitation. And that is the sort of environment that made a place like American Apparel thrive. Because, I thought, as a self-proclaimed feminist, I kind of thought we were in a post-feminism world. Like Gloria Steinem had fixed that stuff. AIDS was sort of in the background. I grew up with a lot of safe sex messaging in the 90s. And I kind of, not to get too heavy, but like equated like sex and death. And then, by the time I got out of college, I was like, oh, maybe I could have sex and not like die. Like that informed a lot of us girls sort of reclaiming our own sexual autonomy. And there's a lot of really good stuff about that. It's hard for me to condemn American Apparel because there's a lot of good things in there too. And that's why the story is so complex.
Well, this is really interesting too. I think you can always play that other half of it, at least half of it, which is, no, it's about empowerment. I'm in control as the woman. I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. So to hear you talk about that and kind of contextualize it in that way is interesting. So does the American Apparel story that you tell, it really shines a light on that period of time, and then ultimately, of course, on what happened at American Apparel and what did happen?
Well, my story takes place during my first year of employment. That's striptease. But I stayed there for 3 years, and the company lasted another maybe 8 years after that. The company went public in 2008, and that was really started the decline, that and the recession. We had
because when you have a public company, and this is really what happened to him, right? You please tell me, Kate. But I think that's when you start to have to own these things that you're doing. Your private kink becomes public kink.
Yes, and you have disapproving men with money who are not into that. Eventually, they shut Dove out, and the company really takes a dive after that because without the horny Svengali at the helm, the company, couldn't support itself, and it went down. Another company swooped in to pick up the pieces. Gildan Activewear, they're a huge company. They own the intellectual property and the brand, and sadly, they make everything that you can buy American Apparel stuff online, but it's all made in sweatshops overseas.
I see. And you go on in your journey, and we talked about Big Dick, the Little Richard cover band. And then I think you've done some writing, or you participated in RuPaul's drag race, right?
Yes, that's right. I work on RuPaul's Drag Race. I've worked there for 10 years in the editing department. I'm not a writer there. I'm in the union. I have a really good editing gig there. Yeah. And I get my health insurance by listening to drag queens talk.
It's and even that, the way we look at drag queens in the society has become, I would have thought, they've almost been mainstreamed, but now you have them being jerked into the limelight in some kind of shaming way by these GOP frontrunners for president and beyond. I mean, just GOP legislators nationwide. It's become, the undoing of America. They can't bring these drag queens into enough conversations.
I know, it's so true. I've always, it's been such a great experience to work for companies where I feel like I'm part of something that's so much bigger. That's why I loved working for American Apparel. We were going to change the world. And in the same way, I love working for RuPaul's Drag Race. I feel like I'm part of a much bigger, more important battle. It's a great place to work.
Any thoughts on the Hollywood strike?
Oh, I mean, I'm certainly pro-strike. Although now I have a dog in the fight because I sold the film option to Striptease.
Of course,
literally right before the strike, like minutes before the strike, practically. So I'm certainly anxious for everyone to get moving.
Get back to work on your movie.
Right. No, but I stand behind the writers and the actors. They have just been getting the shit end of the stick for way too long. It's really disgusting how greed, it's like the American Apparel story. Greed ruins everything. Give the people what they're worth.
Yeah. It's sadly, it's an inflection moment in a lot of industries, and Hollywood is part of it. Kate Flannery, the best-selling author of Striptease. Congratulations on all the success. How old are you, Kate?
I am 42.
Wow, you have everything about you is youth.
Oh,
That's a great
I love
thing.
it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know that too, Kate. Being a youthful person myself.
Yes, of course.
I will have a link to the book Striptease in the description part of our show, and we wish you all the best, and we hope you'll visit again. Again, there's the cover, Kate Flannery's book. Yeah, Striptease, a memoir of millennial Los Angeles. What a world you beamed into from Pennsylvania. Very, very cool. Loved having you here. I look forward to it again.
Mark, thanks so much for having me. It was so fun.
All right.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye. Love that. Love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
She seemed so young, didn't she? Everything about her seemed super young. Right, Albert? Albert, you had that youthful outlook at one time, didn't you?
Fresh face. Yeah.
Fresh-faced guy.
Yeah, definitely.
I did something with my... I can't see any of the comments. I don't know if there's anything I need to do here, Albert. Can you help me quickly here toward the end of the show?
I do have a little breaking news. Can I pop it on really quickly?
Yes, please do.
So, we've been following the fires burning in the state of Hawaii for most of the morning. And now we have word that this historic house called the Baldwin House on Front Street in Lahaina Town has burned down. This is a historic building. It is the oldest house on the island of Maui. It was built in 1834-35, and it was open for tours. So you could go and tour it and see it set up in its historic fashion. It was a gathering place for missionaries in the 1800s, and it is gone, out, burned.
That's just...
Yeah.
It's all so sad. The news out of Maui today really is very, very sad. That is... again, I think it's going to be part of what is sadly an ongoing problem that has turned into an ongoing tragedy. Yeah. It was a problem as you saw the hurricane approaching and as you saw the fire break out. But this is those two things coming together in a brutal way. Because the hurricane, and of course, the fuel is so dry there, the drought, exactly. But whatever fires they might have had a shot at knocking down, they don't in the high winds and the weather that's associated with the tropical weather system. It's really wind. I mean, it's really being driven by wind. In other words, they're not being hit by the hurricane at this moment, but they're being affected by the hurricane, by the winds of the hurricane. So, I'm sure you'll visit it more in your show, Kim, which follows this one, the After Party Live. It's going to be a small peon party today, I guess.
Yeah.
But looking forward to that as well. And yeah, I mean, I wish I had happier news to take us out with. But
we'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
They'll do it live. You'll do the After Party live, won't you?
Absolutely.
So. All right. Albert, is there anything else I have to do, sir? Because The clock on the wall is calling me away.
I'm not sure if we got to this one. I think it was
Steven, come on. Steven Armonger for 20. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Come on, Steven. You're the coolest. Thanks to the super sticker. All of you who contributed super stickers and jumped into the super chats. Anybody who wants to be a rando, we talk to a rando tomorrow. Probably talk to a random listener or viewer who writes in and wants to get on the air. We will send you a link and you will join us. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I had one other thing. Anne has something, and she likes that we had Dawn Watch on yesterday.
Oh,
That's
cool.
very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. She will be on again. Yeah. Always like hearing that you like
I'm
something that we did.
Stevens for the Mark Thompson
Good deal,
Show.
Ann.
Bye-bye.
Good luck to all of our Hawaiian brothers and sisters. Kim's next over on the After Party Live station till tomorrow. Bye-bye.